Stocks set out to have a surge on Tuesday morning, but we've all been let down by that before. An Arizona couple drinks fish tank cleaner in order to try and prevent the COVID 19 outbreak. The stimulus package stalls in the Senate, and the Olympics might be canceled. I'm Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. All right, folks, I'm going to go out on a limb right here before we get into the story, and I'm just going to say if it says cleaner in the name, there's probably a pretty goddamn good chance you shouldn't be drinking it. Just saying. Usually you can't. And I've got a little anecdote about that when we talk about the story here. But before we get started, make sure you head on over to freedomscoop.com and check us out over there. You can check out many other great podcasts like The Generational Gap, like The Daily Ignoramus. You can check out the R-Rated Conservative podcast. He has gone every day at this point. So make sure you go over there and check that out. They're all late night shows, so you can catch them all after work, and some of them are up on the audio platforms as well, so you can catch that all there. We have got a lot to talk about today, and not a lot of time to do it, unfortunately. It's kind of like going eastbound and down. You got a long way to go and a short time to get there, so it is time for us to get started. This first coming from Investors Business Daily. Ed Carson over there writes, Dow Jones futures jump on stimulus hopes after coronavirus stock market crash hits new lows. 6 likely leaders for next rally. Dow Jones futures jumped Tuesday morning along with S&P 500 futures and Nasdaq futures amid optimism about a massive stimulus deal. On Monday, the coronavirus stock market crash hit new lows as stimulus legislation hit roadblocks. COVID-19 cases are still rising rapidly in the US and worldwide, mostly because test kits are becoming available. You're going to see that surge once people start getting tested for it. So keep that in mind. It may not be spreading as fast as you think it is. It just might be people actually know that they have it instead of just a cold that they're sitting home and sweating out. So keep all of that in mind. COVID-19 cases are still rapidly rising in the U.S. and worldwide, spurring more states and countries to adopt tougher restrictions to control the virus. Dow Jones giant Apple has now round-tripped its big rally. Apple stock is starting to break down, losing sight of its 200-day line, but Amazon, Zoom Video Communications, Netflix, Domino's Pizza, DocuSign, and GSX Tech Edu are looking like potential leaders for the post-coronavirus stock market rally. Ironically, 6 stocks that people are using once they're quarantined and can't go to work. First off, Zoom Video stock. Come back here. Amazon stock and Netflix stock, Domo stock, DocuSign stock, and GSX all have relative strength lines at new highs, signaling outperformance versus the S&P 500 index. The RS line for Apple stock is starting to weaken but isn't far from highs. Stock with rising RS lines during a correction or full-blown stock market crash are likely to do well in a new uptrend. But another positive from Amazon stock to GSX stock to Netflix stock to Zoom Video stock is that these companies all showed strong fundamentals and technicals before the coronavirus crisis. Now they are doing well under the coronavirus stock market crash, so that bodes well for the future. Domino stock is an IBD long-term leader. So, yeah, all the stocks that are out there for companies that encourage you to stay home, not go out on a Friday night, and work from home are all doing well when you are supposed to be not going out, working from home, and not going out on a Friday night. Sorry, folks, this isn't exactly rocket science here. Let's see what CNBC has to say. Let's see if they yell at me for my ad blocker again. I think I closed it already, though. Yeah, I can tell you right off the bat from doing the show, like, second day into doing it, I put an ad blocker on because I thought it would free up some RAM so I could put more stories up on this, because the old girl is not designed to do what I'm asking her to do, but I put an ad blocker on. You would not believe how many websites hate the fact that you use an ad blocker. My money! You're taking away my money! Anyway, this is from CNBC. Dow futures surged 700 points, briefly hit limit up on optimism. A coronavirus rescue bill is close. This is from Thomas Frank. Futures contracts tied to major U.S. stock indices surged in the early trading Tuesday on hopes an agreement on a stimulus bill to rescue the economy from the coronavirus was close. As of 8:14 a.m. Eastern Time, Dow Jones Industrial Average Futures jumped 762 points or 4% and briefly hit so-called limit up levels. S&P 500 futures and NASDAQ futures were also up around 4% and limit up. Uh-oh, I got the COVID. You hear it? The S&P 500 SPDR ETF was up 3.7% in pre-market trading. Senator Charles Schumer and the Treasury Secretary Mnuchin were close to a deal on the $2 trillion stimulus bill, according to reports which cited a conference call Schumer had Monday evening with Democratic leaders. Negotiations on the bill were set to continue Tuesday morning. The futures contracts cannot trade once they exceed certain extreme bands, according to rules of the exchange, to curb volatility. Yeah, we all learned this week, as they were limiting up and limiting down constantly. No activity can take place outside of those bands, in this case up 5%. During this historic stock market plunge this month, the futures have often been halted for being limit down, off by more than 5%. No, you NBC prick. They have been alternating limit up and limit down. But it's NBC, so they want to pin this on the president. Tuesday's moves followed yet another stormy day on Monday as investors swung back to pessimism and pushed the major indices to new multi-year lows as a procedural vote in the Senate on a bill failed for the second time in 24 hours. So, like we've been saying since I started this show, and since we started reading stocks on this show, the markets do not like volatility. And that is going to be what is going to be the downfall of a lot of this, is the fact that we have nothing but volatility coming out of DC, coming out of workers, and coming out of the country in general right now, and that will plunge markets faster than anything else. So that's where your markets are going to be. I do recommend starting to buy at some point, and yeah, grabbing on some of these tech guys that are doing well throughout the day, because they're going to continue to do well. And once people start realizing they can do some of this stuff from home, fuel is cheap right now, but it's not going to be cheap forever either. Keep that in mind. And now that they have the opportunity and the ability to do so, some of them are going to continue to try and work from home if they can. You can still have your career and take care of the dog and take care of the kids and do everything else. So that might be the big compromise that we looked for to get back to that traditional style of life that we had. Who knows? If anything we've learned from these last 2 weeks, the future is completely up in the air. So one more on global markets here. This is from CNN Business. Global markets sink despite Fed's promise of unlimited support for the economy. This is from Claire Duffy, Laura He, and Charles Riley over at CNN Business. U.S. stocks opened lower Monday and European markets stayed stuck in reverse even after the U.S. Federal Reserve committed itself to creating an unlimited amount of money. That is scary. Those are scary words to come from the federal government, folks. You like using your money for toilet paper like they did in Venezuela? You might get the chance. I know that's usually something that you attribute to being super, super rich, but yeah, you might get the chance under the economy if the Fed is going to pump that much money into it. The decision to buy unlimited amounts of government bonds was part of a much bigger package of extraordinary measures announced by the Fed, which also included a promise to launch a Main Street lending program. U.S. stocks were poised to open dramatically lower prior to the announcement from the central bank, which briefly lifted European stocks and oil prices. The Dow, S&P 500, and NASDAQ pulled back some of their losses, but still started the trading session in negative territory. It has become clear that the economy will face severe disruptions, the Federal Reserve said in a statement. Aggressive efforts must be taken across public and private sectors to limit the losses to jobs and incomes to promote a swift recovery once the disruptions abate. Global stock markets were hammered earlier on Monday after U.S. lawmakers failed to reach an agreement on a massive stimulus package meant to help Americans handle the coronavirus pandemic, and as authorities around the world took ever more draconian measures to restrict movement and public gatherings. So that's something we need to keep in mind, and we'll talk a bit about the stimulus package and some thoughts on that as well. But first, we're going to lose my faith in humanity. So if you're ready and you're willing, let's go ahead and talk about this. This is from Fox 10 Phoenix, from Bailey Miller. Arizona man dead after taking fish tank cleaner to prevent coronavirus infection. I don't want to live on this world anymore, folks. If this is 51 years ago, we put a man on the moon with less computing power than what's in a TI-81 calculator. Now we have people drinking fish tank cleaner to cure a virus they didn't even have. This was a preventative measure, according to this article. Let's see what Fox 10 News has to say. Medical experts with Banner Health are warning the public against using inappropriate medication and household products to prevent or treat coronavirus. Folks, that should have been a given. The worst part is these people were in their 60s, so they've probably already bred. Otherwise, like if this was some 22-year-old kid that did this, we would just say we're thinning out the gene pool, getting some of those bad genes out and making it natural selection. But my God, this person survived 60 years and passed on his genetics, most likely. The warning by Banner Health comes after an Arizona man in his 60s died from taking a substance used to clean fish tanks at aquariums in order to prevent contracting COVID-19. Prevent. He did not have it yet. In a statement released on Monday, experts emphasized that chloroquine, which is a medication used for malaria, should not be taken to treat or prevent COVID-19. Banner Health officials said the man who died, along with his wife, both took chloroquine phosphate. The man's wife, who is also in her 60s, is currently under critical care. Officials say both were taken to a Banner Health hospital for immediate treatment after they experienced immediate effects within 30 minutes of taking a substance. No fucking shit, you dumb people. So, as most of us have learned throughout the last day, because Twitter won't let us forget this, chloroquine is a medication that is taken in the milligrams level as an anti-malarial, mostly in Africa, where malaria is still running rampant. It is given in the milligrams, 10 milligram doses at a time, because it is extremely toxic if you take in the grams level. And that is when it's at its regular, I believe it's hydroxychloroquine is when it's medicinal. And as chloroquine phosphate, you will experience the effects in 30 minutes, according to this article, and you're going to die. If it says cleaner in the name, you should not be drinking it. Should not be drinking it. If a substance says cleaner in the name. Left-wing Twitter was quick to jump to blame Trump for this because he quoted the French official saying that chloroquine was possibly effective in treating COVID-19 once you already had it. not as a preventative measure, but once you already had it. And people are blaming Trump for this. I knew a kid. I went to a mechanic school out east. I knew a kid who, on a dare, drank Simple Green because it is non-toxic. He drank it right out of the bottle. Simple Green is advertised as a non-toxic cleaner. So you would think you would be just fine with it. And he drank it, and he got violently sick because of it. You can imagine why. Because you are not supposed to drink something that says cleaner on it. Now, of course, he didn't die, and he didn't have any long-term effects because Simple Green is non-toxic. Chloroquine phosphate is. So, my faith in humanity is gone. So, let's look to the other organization. Well, no, let's not do that yet. Let's look at what the State Department is doing to try and help people at this point. So, this is from Nicole Gowett and Jennifer Hansler over at CNN. Sorry, Ron Helton, for not using the article you provided, but, ad blocker. USA Today was not happy about that. But this is from CNN Politics. 13,000 stranded Americans struggle to find a way home as pandemic surges. As the State Department arranges flights to bring back Americans stuck abroad by border closures and flight cancellations due to the coronavirus pandemic, many of those citizens and their families tell CNN they are still struggling to get clear answers from the agency tasked with protecting their health and well-being overseas. State Department officials told reporters Monday that they are organizing 16 flights in the next few days, deploying an emergency fund to charter flights and discussing the use of Defense Department and Department of Homeland Security planes to transport stranded Americans. Why does the Department of Homeland Security have planes? Why do they have their own planes? That's something we need to look into. To transport stranded Americans, some of 13,500 of whom have reached out for help getting home and are now being tracked by the department. No option is foreclosed out, a senior State Department. Jesus, why do I keep doing that? No option is foreclosed out, a senior State Department official said. The official spoke a day after President Donald Trump said the government is working very long to help Americans overseas. Vice President Mike Pence added that we've been working very diligently through the State Department to make it possible. Their commercial flights have been chartered, and we're also working with the military for a backup on flights. So they're still overseas. We do need to get them taken care of, and we do need to get them home. So that's going to be important. And it looks like the entire Trump administration is taking this very seriously, even though he was kind of lax in the beginning of it. And I still don't think that the COVID is as bad as they're trying to make it out to be, but yet again, it's even worse for people with compromised immune systems. So we do still have to be careful about it, and that's part of the reason that we are doing this entire quarantine. As much as I disagree about it, and much as we're going to talk about America needs to reopen, I do understand the sentiment behind it because, yeah, if I get it, it's probably not going to be that bad for me. But if I get it and go hug my grandma, it's not going to turn out well for her. So we do need to keep all of this in mind as we continue to go. So Trump came under a lot of fire yesterday for his speech, which included Bill Barr in the background, which I don't understand at all, but did not include Dr. Anthony Fauci, one of the lead voices that's been going through this entire pandemic. This is from the Washington Examiner. This is an editorial, keep in mind, so we may or may not be able to take this as a green check here, but let's see what Washington Examiner had to say. That's an interesting author's name. His name is Washington Examiner, and he works for the Washington Examiner. The United States is entering a precarious few weeks in the fight against the coronavirus. New York City's medical system is on the brink of collapse as the number of patients with COVID-19 virus requiring intensive care is overwhelming the system capacity. While it may be difficult to channel the scarce resources in the city to increase capacity, that becomes much more difficult if other hotspots such as San Francisco and Seattle follow a similar fate. Then we could be talking about a nationwide collapse of the medical system. So while it's understandable that a national, state, and local leaders are focused on trying to avoid this dire scenario through aggressive measures that require mass lockdowns and business closures, they must also work on a strategy to open things up once the peak is passed. There are a few facts to keep in mind, even if everything goes perfectly. It will take at least 18 months until fall 2021 for there to be an effective vaccine. Realistically, however, it could be longer, and that means policymakers and the public should brace for the reality that the coronavirus will be a part of everybody's lives for the next few years. The current level of lockdown is unsustainable. The airline, hotel, and restaurant and leisure departments cannot remain closed for years. Schools cannot be shut down indefinitely. Parents are not going to absorb the burden of homeschooling their children forever, while struggling to hold down full-time jobs, especially if they must also avoid help from grandparents, playdates, going to playgrounds, and so forth. Governments can probably count on relatively widespread compliance for a short time, but draconian social distancing is not viable until the widespread availability of a vaccine. Leaders need to take action now so that once the caseload peaks and begins to decline, there's a glide path for people to return to a semblance of normal life. Given that the ultimate fear is the strain on the medical system, there needs to be a multi-tiered strategy that attacks the problems of both supply and demand. On the supply front, there are all current shortages caused by the COVID-19 virus cases must be addressed. Masks and other protective gear are scarce, which increases the risk of transmitting the disease to healthcare workers and thus exacerbating the problem of medical staffing. There's also a shortage of ventilators, which allow these with severe versions of the disease to keep breathing, giving them a fighting chance to live. In Italy and China, once medical systems reached their capacity, fatality rates soared. Increased capacity and our system can increase the number of severe cases it can treat before reaching that point. On the demand side, we must focus on ways to slow down the spread of the disease that do not depend on widespread lockdowns. Scott Gottlieb, President Trump's former Food and Drug Administration commissioner, has outlined several strategies that could get the U.S. to a point at which there would be some return to normal life. For instance, masks can cut the risk of transmission by half. If all people wore masks when they went out, it would slow the spread of the virus, and we would also look like Japan during the swine flu pandemic, which is not going to happen, unfortunately. There are too many people out there that don't believe in any of that and think that disease theory is hooey and a punishment from God or whatever it is that they believe. But yeah, so he's got an outline of a free market system to try and correct this, and I do agree with some of that to an extent here, but for the most part we do need to get back out to a point where we are spending money again, because that is what's dragging our economy down. And yes, I understand the fact that every single stimulus package they can put out is a step in the direction of trying to get money in the hands of people to do a trickle up kind of thing. But one thing you've got to keep in mind is that if people don't have a place to spend the money, it's not going to do dick for the economy. So that's something we've got to keep in mind here. So this is from CNN. Trump says things will be bad, but it is itching to scale back social distancing. This is from Kevin Liptak, Jim Acosta, look at me, I'm Jim Acosta, Vivian Salama, and Jeremy Diamond over at CNN. President Donald Trump signaled Monday he is aware things may get worse before they get better as the country battles the coronavirus pandemic, but nonetheless he is itching to ease federal guidelines that have shuttered businesses and kept workers at home, insisting the economy must be reopened, even if some of the health professionals on his team appear to disagree. Our country wasn't built to be shut down. This is not a country that was built for this. It was not built to be shut down, he said during an evening briefing at the White House, even as he acknowledged Monday the effects of the coronavirus are likely to worsen. Certainly, this is going to be bad. The dueling positions underscore the dynamic currently animating Trump's coronavirus task force, which is split on whether the self-isolating measures are worth the cost to the economy. Trump admitted there were opposing views, but he insisted he would take into account the views of officials such as Dr. Anthony Fauci, the nation's top infectious disease specialist. If it were up to the doctors, they may say, let's keep it shut down. Let's shut down the entire world, Trump said. Halfway through the self-prescribed period of self-isolation, the economy effects are clearly weighing on the president, who had banked on a strong U.S. economy in his re-election plans. As the country entered another week of the virtual shutdown, tough questions have been raised on how long the coronavirus mitigation measures he recommended will last, whether they are worth the economic pain. Trump has suggested that they may not be. We cannot let the cure be worse than the problem itself, Trump tweeted late Sunday night. At the end of the 15-day period, we will make a decision as to which way we want to go. And this is something I talked about yesterday, and it's very important to keep in mind because with no economy, with no production or limited production on food products, sanitary products, pain relief products, and other things that were deemed non-essential during all of this, and some of this was deemed essential, but other things that were deemed non-essential, plus people not being at work and able to go out and buy the things once everything opens back up. If we have starvation, poverty wages, and people dying from lack of medical care from not being able to go to work, if we lose 10,000 people due to the lack of medical care and 350 people due to the COVID-19, what's going to be the worst scenario here? So we do have to find a compromise in this somewhere. And yes, I understand the fact that we don't want to go out unless we're idiot college students who want to go out and drink for spring break. We don't want to go out and get sick and be a carrier for this and then go hug our grandmas. But on the other end of it, we need to make the money and spend the money because that's what keeps the economy going. So there's something in the middle of this, and we need to find it, and nobody's found it yet. This is a similar story. This is from ABC News. This is from Libby Cathy. The novel coronavirus pandemic is spreading around the globe and in the United States, resulting in more than 41,700 cases domestically and more than 500 deaths. The federal government has been rolling out its response to the virus, its effort to stem the tide as well as to stimulate the economy, which has taken a severe hit. Here are the latest developments in... Is this just a highlight one? No, it's not. They just put the rest of the article way far down. President Donald Trump opened the daily White House Monday briefing, expanding on reports that he was considering loosening coronavirus guidelines amid growing economic fallout. The country wasn't built to be shut down, he said emphatically. We cannot let the cure be worse than the problem itself. We're not going to let the cure be worse than the problem. At the end of the 15-day period, we'll make a decision as to which way we want to go, he said, referring to what was the coming opening of our country. This was a medical problem. We're not going to let it turn into a long-term financial problem, Trump declared. We're just not going to let it happen. He didn't offer an exact timeline, but said it will be a lot sooner than 3 or 4 months that someone was suggesting. So yes, and I do understand once again, and I mean for me, I know that it's coming, it's going to be in my region at some point, and once again, as a young person with a healthy immune system, I am okay with the idea that, okay, I'll get the disease, and at this point I'm kind of looking forward to it, because I'll sit at home for 2 weeks and sweat it out and be miserable for 2 weeks, and then the antibodies will be through my body and will prevent me from ever getting it again, is the point. It's the logic that I have behind it. I mean, it's in my county already, so it's going to get here at some point. I mean, at some point you got to ask yourself, is the disease worse, or is the anticipation and the fear of getting the disease worse? Because if you're hunkered down, shuddering, wondering whether or not it's going to get you, it's just like the monster in some horror movie. You're sitting around making stupid decisions because you know that it's out there and trying to track you and get to you. So yeah, I'm almost at the point of just get it out of the way. Get it done and over with. It's like eating your Brussels sprouts when you're 7. Just get it done and get it over with. Except eating your Brussels sprouts won't make it hard for you to breathe and give you a nasty cold and fever. But I've been yelled at for that opinion before. So speaking of the financial ties to this, on the trying to up the demand side, the Senate is still fighting to up the supply side. So, and this is for the money, of course. I think I might have got that backward. Senate GOP ramps up pressure on Democrats over coronavirus stimulus packages with Monday vote. This is from Phil Mattingly, Claire Foran, and Ted Barnett over at CNN. Hours after Senate Democrats blocked movement on a massive stimulus package Sunday evening, injecting fresh uncertainty over whether and when lawmakers will reach a bipartisan deal to deliver relief amid the devastating coronavirus pandemic, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell ramped up pressure on the Democrats. Taking to the Senate floor late Sunday night, he announced another procedural vote on the package timed for 9:45 a.m. Monday, minutes after the stock market opens. But it was blocked by Democrats who didn't want to be forced to take the vote. And like we said yesterday, they're trying not to take the vote on the bill that they wrote. They wrote large portions of the bill and then they voted it down. So, over things that weren't actually in the bill. That was the worst part to me, was that it was all over things that weren't in the bill. I've read the bill front to back. If you actually read the bill and you think that there is a slush fund for rich people in there, I suggest you get your comprehension checked, because none of that is in there. In fact, there were provisions out there to try and prevent stock buybacks from the CEOs and a cap on CEO salary. So, slush fund for the rich, this was far from. I think there's a good chance we'll have an agreement, but we don't need artificial deadlines. We will get this done. We will come in at noon, and hopefully we'll have an agreement by then, Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, who made the objection, said on the Senate floor. Meanwhile, the American people are not going to work currently, except for a few people who have jobs that are determined to be necessary for the conduct of American life. For the most part, people are not going to work, and some of them are getting paid because they can work from home, but some of them are not. Restaurant workers are furloughed, and other various people who couldn't do their job from home but still are not deemed necessary are not going to work, and they need the help. I've been over this numerous times. Yes, I'm going to take my check and rip it up and give it back to the government with the middle finger up, but there are people that are going to need to eat dinner that are going to need this. So, Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, take your artificial deadline comment and shove it up your ass. Let's see what's on the positive side of this. This is from NBC News. Mnuchin and Schumer, optimistic on coronavirus stimulus package, say deal is close. The legislation is believed to contain around $2 trillion in aid for workers and businesses. This is from Rebecca Shabbat and Julie Sirkin over at NBC. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer and Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin said late Monday that they were nearing a deal on roughly $2 trillion in stimulus package to help American workers and businesses survive the coronavirus outbreak. Apologize for that. I kind of lost my place there. I think we made a lot of progress, Mnuchin told reporters on Capitol Hill just before midnight after emerging from negotiations. There are still a couple of open issues, but I think we're very hopeful that this can be closed out Tuesday. Mnuchin said that he and Schumer had consulted with both President Donald Trump and Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell Monday about the progress made on the legislation. Though no deal was reached, staff was expected to continue drafting the massive package overnight. "We expect to have an agreement tomorrow morning," Schumer told reporters. "There's still a few little differences. Neither of us think that we're in any way going to get in the way of the final agreement." The two main issues that Democrats wanted, protecting workers and a Marshall Plan for hospitals, are very strongly in the bill, said Schumer, who declined to go into detail. Mnuchin called the president, Schumer said, and told him, "We were very, very close to an agreement, and he seemed very happy with that." He also added that Trump seemed very positive about the status of the talks. Schumer said that he hopes they can complete the agreement Tuesday and vote on it by the evening. So, we'll see what they do with that. I know that we still have to get this through the other chamber and past Mrs. Pelosi, who doesn't want to see McConnell and Trump get the win. And that was a part, if anybody denies that that was a part of what happened yesterday, you're out of your mind. This is from CNBC. This is on the other side of the government. From Jacob Pramuk. House Democrats introduce a $2.5 trillion coronavirus stimulus plan as Senate bill stalls. House Democrats introduced a sprawling plan to blunt the economic damage from the coronavirus pandemic as efforts to pass a bill in the Senate hit roadblocks on Monday. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi said her caucus would unveil legislation Monday that takes responsibility for the health, wages, and well-being of America's workers. This package would cost more than $2.5 trillion, according to a summary circulated by Democratic aides on Monday. It would include, according to the summary, direct payments to an individual of $1,500 and $7,500 for a family of 5. Where's that money coming from? No cost sharing for coronavirus vaccines and treatments, including for the uninsured. Where's that money coming from? Expanded access to paid family and medical leave. Why do we need that right now? $500 billion in grants and interest-free loans to small businesses. Okay. Still confused as where that money's going to come from, but that's also in the Senate bill, so we're going to call that one a wash. Strengthen unemployment insurance with $600 per week for people affected by coronavirus and eligible for unemployment benefits. Why can't we do that at a state level? $150 billion in funding for hospitals, community health centers, and government health programs. That I can get behind. $60 billion in funding for schools and universities, along with student debt relief. Why is that in an aid bill for COVID-19? More funding for the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program and other food assistance programs. Let's do that at a state level. $4 billion in state election grants and national requirements for 15 days of early voting and no excuse absentee voting as fears grow about the coronavirus spreading at polling sites. I think you need to go back and read your Constitution because that is a state issue. That is not something you are allowed to put in on the federal level, according to Article 1. So this is why Pelosi wanted to block this and make sure it didn't go through the Senate, so she could ram this through, which there's one line on this that I can actually get behind. And the Senate bill, at least, was coming out of taxes that you paid in, the eligible taxes that you had from 2018. This is just, here, have some money. With no accountability, have some money. The Senate bill was at least accountable to something. So, yes, this is what is going on in our country right now. So I've got a short video here that I wanted to play for you. I listened to 3 minutes. Let me get the headphones on, and let me get your headphones on here a second. This came to me via Brady Leonard because it's a speech that Senator Cruz gave after the Senate Democrats blocked the bill. So let me get these on. Let me get this turned on. And let's get a listen.
The famed quote from Rahm Emanuel, President Obama's chief of staff, "Never let a good crisis go to waste." Sadly, we're seeing the embodiment of that cynical approach right now. Because all the people out of jobs the Democrats are using to push, what are they pushing for? Changing the emission standards on airplanes. Mr. President, what the hell do the emission standards on airplanes have to do with thousands of people dying and millions of people out of work in the coronavirus epidemic? Don't treat this bill like a partisan Christmas list. And by the way, you know, Republicans, we've got things we would like to advance too. Things I believe in deeply. You want to talk about what I'd like to do? I'd like to abolish the IRS. I've campaigned on that all over the country. I'm going to continue fighting for that. But, Mr. President, I'm not standing here with an amendment saying, as part of this emergency relief, let's abolish the IRS. There's a place for that political and policy discussion. The Democrats are pushing wind and solar tax credits. Mr. President, what in the hell does a windmill have to do with this crisis? Other than there's some Democratic lobbyists getting fat and rich, and they're willing to extort a crisis to try to advance their political agenda. Mandates on corporate board diversity. So these are Democrats that want to social engineer. Now listen, I actually have a lot of problems with corporate boards. I think we have far too many corporate boards that are docile and do what management wants. That's a serious problem. A lot of discussion about stock buybacks. I'll tell you what I get concerned about stock buybacks is when you have compensation agreements in place that the executives get rich if they get a short-term boost in share price, and it ends up hurting the shareholders. So I'd love to see actually more vigorous boards of directors that make sure that you're not creating incentives to game the stock price. That's a reasonable question. But they want to mandate effectively quotas on boards of directors. Mr. President, what in the hell does that have to do with this crisis? The Pelosi wish list wants to restructure the debt for the post office. Mr. President, last I checked, look, our postal workers, they go through wind and rain and snow, but they haven't been laid off. I call upon both sides. Don't play games with this. This crisis isn't going to end tomorrow. It's not going to end the next day. It's going to last for a considerable time. It's going to require adults to step up and lead.
So that was what Ted Cruz had to say, and I've got to agree with everything on that. I mean, the thing with Cruz is he's right, and this is something that I said when I wrote my letter to Pelosi as well. Get the pet projects out of it and actually do something for the American people. Vote on the pet projects on the next one. Fight about the pet projects in the next one, but get those checks out to people that actually need them. Let us decide whether we need it or not, but get those out to the people that need them and worry about this later. So thank you, Senator Cruz, for bringing that up. And I know a lot of people are saying that Cruz 2024, and I could honestly get behind that. I could see that, and I could get behind it. So on the positive side here, and we're going to have to start wrapping this up here pretty quick. On the positive side, we've got this from Newsweek. Looks like Elon Musk says about 1,200 ventilators for coronavirus patients ready this week as Tesla, Facebook, and Apple donate face masks. This is from Jason Murdoch. Elon Musk said about 1,200 ventilators are expected to be ready for distribution in the U.S. this week, an effort that could help medical experts treat severe cases of COVID-19. The Tesla boss said on Saturday he had discussed engineering state-of-the-art ventilators with Medtronic, an Ireland-based healthcare firm that mainly serves the U.S. market. His company sent out tens of thousands of N95 respirator masks to states impacted by the novel coronavirus over the weekend, and Musk has promised more protective medical equipment is now imminent. we'll just do a brief one on this one here, and then we've got another one here from CNN Business that's on the same line. This is from Peter Valdez de Pena. Ford is working with 3M and GE to make respirators and ventilators. Ford announced Tuesday that it's working with 3M and GE Healthcare to produce medical equipment and protective gear for healthcare workers to help address shortages in the fight against the coronavirus. Healthcare workers around the country have expressed concern about difficulties in attaining enough critical supplies such as masks, gloves, and ventilators to deal with the influx of patients suffering from the highly contagious coronavirus. Ford said it will work with 3M to produce a new kind of powered air purifying respirator for healthcare workers, while also helping to increase production of 3M's current respirator device. A PAPR has a clear mask that fits over the face. Air is drawn through the tube connected to a pump that filters air. The PAPR will be made using parts from both Ford and 3M, the automaker said, including fans used in the Ford F-150's optional ventilated seats. So we've got two things going on here with both Musk and Ford getting into this. And that is the fact that I'm sure that many of the factory workers are furloughed at this point, because if nobody's out buying cars, then they don't need to make the cars right now. So that's going to depress some wages, especially among the union sector. So right there, you're putting people back to work. And 3M too, paper products are going to be on a decline. So there's not going to be that much need for paper products workers, but if they can work together on this stuff and get some people back to work, you can start to fuel the economy that way by providing mandatory jobs in this economy for people to go in and work. And, I'm sure they're going to offer some of these factory workers incentives to come in and work throughout the pandemic, because it's hazard pay at that point. So, and the other side of this, of course, is the fact that Musk is putting the money in, donating the masks, and also trying to build a better mask that he theoretically will also donate to hospitals. So private charity is stepping in where the government has failed, and that warms my little heart. And I know that the Freedom Scoop guys and I were working together to get a telethon to help further workers as well, to get charity in, to get people to donate in and let the American people help each other, because it is very clear right now that the government doesn't want to help them. They would rather sit back and bicker back and forth about what it is that they can do and play partisan politics, because we are in an election year right now. I think this response would have been a lot different if this wasn't an election year, but we're in an election year right now, so that's all they want to do is score points for their fan bases. So good on Elon Musk, good on Ford, good on 3M. Thank you for coming in. Oh, and good on GE too. They were mentioned in this. Good on all of you for coming in and trying to get the people back to work and get the private charity out there where the government has failed. Just a couple little quick hitters here. It's from Fox News. Amy Klobuchar says her husband has coronavirus. I pray for him. This is from Brooke Singman. Senator Amy Klobuchar announced Monday that her husband has tested positive for coronavirus and that he is currently being treated in a Virginia hospital. Klobuchar, a former Democratic presidential hopeful, said her husband received the results of his COVID-19 test on Monday. While I cannot see him, and he is of course cut off from all visitors, our daughter Abigail and I are constantly calling and texting and email, Klobuchar said in a statement. We love him very much and pray for his recovery. Klobuchar said her husband is exhausted and sick, but a very strong and resilient person. So I found out about this on Twitter, which is the worst possible place to find out about news like this, because, of course, all the Bernie fans especially, but all the political people in general, were sending horrible wishes to Klobuchar, hoping that she died and saying just terrible things that I can't even repeat on this channel. And that's saying something, because I drop the F-bomb regularly on this channel, but just some of the things we're saying chilled me. And this is a person that's supposedly on their side, and they're saying this to her. So I pray for a speedy recovery for Mr. Klobuchar. I hope that he gets better. I hope he gets out of the hospital soon. And yeah, Then he can go back and sweat the rest of it out at home and get back to doing whatever it is that the husbands of senators do. I don't even know. Lastly, this is from also Fox News. Tokyo Olympics to be postponed. Japan's Prime Minister Shinzo Abe says. This is from Ray Gatos. The global spread of the coronavirus has forced Tokyo Olympics to be postponed until next summer at the latest. Japan's Prime Minister Shinzo Abe announced Tuesday. Abe said that he and the International Olympic Committee, President Thomas Bach, came to an agreement to postpone the games. The latest the event can take place is the summer of 2021. The IOC has not put out an official statement on the postponement of the Olympics. The organization wouldn't confirm or deny Monday whether the games were going to be postponed after veteran IOC member Dick Pound told USA Today the event was on hold. On the basis of the information the IOC has, postponement has been decided, Pound told the news outlet. The parameters going forward have not been determined, but the games are not going to start on July 24th. That much I know. So, for the most part, I think that most of this is going to be over by July, but with all of the residual and the fact that in most cases you can still transmit the virus up to 2 weeks after recovery, this is probably the best idea. Because we don't know once people are asymptomatic, we aren't going to know who has it and who doesn't, and it's going to be impossible to socially distance with the way that people are packed in on these games. I mean, this is a worldwide event that people spend big money in. It's a once-in-a-lifetime thing to be able to say that you went to the Olympics. So this is probably the best idea. Once again, I don't think that the COVID-19 is as big of a deal as people are saying that it is, but the other side of it, of course, is the fact that even if it's not that big of a deal, panic is. And people are going to panic about this. So let's not let them gather in such a massive number. There's the word I was looking for. Let's not let them gather like that, and let's not let panic ensue out of this. So on Tuesday, which is always funny because I just go out every Monday. I say what restores my faith in humanity, and then Tuesday comes up and I read Twitter trending hashtags, which destroy any hope that I had in humanity. Yes, and I mean even the news story we started out with, I was titled after today, destroyed my faith in humanity as well. But let's see what we've got going on Twitter trending hashtags. So Great American Takeout is number one. I'm a waiter and there's no safe way to do this. Just give us a government bailout and let us live, please. Order takeout from your favorite restaurant today. Great American Takeout Tuesday. Michelle Tuzzi from a local ABC7 affiliate says, one way you can help people struggling with the financial burden of the coronavirus emergency is just ordering food from a local restaurant tomorrow at the Great American Takeout. I might have to do that. What was that? Tuesday they said it was going to be. I might have to do that just for laughs, just to make sure that we get some of these people working again. I know that a lot of restaurant workers are furloughed right now. That's why we're going to have a fundraiser for them. So yeah, I'm going to do that today. Thanks, guys. GOP death panels. This is from Politabunny, who is a great follow over on Twitter. Just when I think people on this site can't get any damn dumber, I'm surprised. Over and over again. Hashtag GOP death panels. Austin Peterson says, liberals are bitching about GOP death panels because they want DNC death panels. So I wonder what this is about. Okay, so this is probably something that has to do with the fact that Trump said that he wants to reopen America. Given the fact that they're talking about not dying for Wall Street, which was another trending hashtag earlier. So, yeah. Yeah, they think that, of course, if we open the economy back up, then everybody's going to die. So, good job, Twitter. Reopen America is trending. I saw that earlier. We talked about that. Rebuilder says Trump wants to reopen America so the jobs numbers look better. Force workers to quit for their safety instead of being laid off to save billions on unemployment. What? No, that's not what's happening there. He wants to make sure that you have an America to come back to. So, yeah, I can't read that one anymore. Otherwise, I'm going to start screaming, and I do have to go to work at some point today. COVID idiots is the last trend that we'll look at here, and this is the people that we talked about earlier on in the show. And we have more of this, of course. This is from the owner of an Oxton bar on the Wirral Mary side. It's worth noting that Michael Atkinson had this bar handed to him by his dad. Make sure everybody sees this. Michael Atkinson, socialist, mouthy, fear-mongering fuckfaces bringing the country to a standstill. Literally, the only silver lining is that thank fuck you'll never get a pay raise, as there'll be no private sector taxes to fund your irrelevant, overstretched fees. Fuck you, social media. P.S. You're no fucking hero. I'd give my little finger to still have income and kids allowed to go to school. Fuck off. People who go to war are heroes, not wanker wannabes twirling your thumbs waiting for a pay rise in an empty hospital. So, yeah, this is going on, of course. This is coming from the people that decided that they wanted to drink fish tank cleaner was what started the hashtag, but now people are going on and making sure that people in the UK are feeling it too. So anybody who is not on board with the agenda that Nancy Pelosi wants to put through is a COVID idiot, according to Twitter trending hashtags. And that is what we have today. Make sure you come back later on tonight. We're going to be playing some New Vegas. We're going to be back on the Tuesday schedule. So come on in and watch as we explore more of the Sierra Madre in Dead Money and Fallout New Vegas. Otherwise, we will be back here tomorrow with more contemporary. So thanks everybody for joining in. Of course, on Friday, we will read the names of everybody who was in the live chat. So I'm going to write that down as soon as we get off. Until then, though, I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary.